Right away, we're dealt ace-king offsuit on the button. Getting off to a good start is key for me to keep the confidence up, especially after getting torched the last time I played in a bigger game at the lodge. 5-10-20 at the win is more manageable bankroll-wise, but the skill level of the opponents here is actually higher than it was for the streamed games in Texas, simply because you're usually lucky if there's one true recreational player in the game at these stakes in Las Vegas, and the pros at the table are some of the best in the world that regularly put you in very difficult spots. I get the ball rolling in this hand with a raise to 60. The big blind makes the call for 50 more. We're heads up in position. The flop comes king-king-4 rainbow. We flop a monster with our trips. The big blind checks. There's not much for him to have with 3 kings that are accounted for, and there are no draws present. I'm debating between checking back or betting small. Ultimately, I bet 20. It's a tiny sizing to lure in someone who's probably drawing close to dead. He makes the call with no hesitation. The turn is the 10 of diamonds, so there are some straight and flush draw possibilities now. The big blind checks. We're going to increase our bet size, but I realize you've never seen the ceiling here on this channel before, and you really can't leave an elegant ceiling design out of a proper poker vlog. After getting the tree to seeing that, we bet 70. The big blind calls again. It's tough for things to get much better than this, but they do get better. The river is the ace of hearts. We improve to make a full house. The big blind checks. It's time to try and determine the maximum that we can extract from our opponent's stack. It's really rare that someone will make an extremely strong hand like this one when it's four-handed, just because with fewer cards being dealt, it's less likely that there will be a monster tabled at showdown. The average strength of a winning hand is less. Because of that, I tend to value bet lighter, and I expect to get called lighter from my opponents. I bet 230. Perhaps the big blind could have the case king, though I kinda doubt it. Feels more like we're up against a pair of 10s, or worse, as the opponent is contemplating what to do. Eventually, the player makes a crying call. We get the opportunity to do something that I hope your captain doesn't do the next time you're on a carnival cruise, and that's turn over a boat. This pot really isn't that large for this game. Still, it's nice to immediately make a big hand and get some value to start the day in the black. In this one, we've got pocket 4s on the button. We're 5-handed now as Christian Soto has entered the game. Christian does some great work commentating for the Hustlers livestream. He's a well-known cash game player. I raised to 50. Christian has only been here a few minutes, yet he's already looking to make a big splash. He 3-bets to 300 from the under-the-gun straddle. We won't be folding any pocket pairs after we open from the button. I call for 250 more. We're heads up in position. The flop comes king-queen-4 with 2 diamonds. We've got bottom set on a coordinated board against an aggressive pro. The opponent down bets at 200. If I were out of position, I'd play this fast and put in the check raise right now. Since we're in position, we can ensure that the turn won't check through. Even though there are a lot of bad cards that could potentially come out, I make the call to disguise our hand strength and possibly keep the opponent's bluffs in. If a blank comes out, we could be set up to win a big pot. The turn is the deuce of clubs. It's beautiful seeing that. Under the gun probably doesn't have a strong top pair or better because he checks. Hands like ace king and king jack will continue firing, so will king queen and better sets. I'd expect most drawing hands to continue firing as well, like flush draws, ace 10, ace jack, jack 10 suited. Really feels like we're up against an ace queen type of combo. Maybe queen jack or queen 10 suited or pocket jacks. There's no way we're allowing our opponent to see a free card. We bet 600 for value. It doesn't appear that the opponent is considering putting in the check raise. He just calls on a board with a lot of draws. Let's just see the 7 of spades one time. Nope. The river is the 9 of diamonds, completing both straight and flush draws that were present on the flop. The opponent checks. While the river card is scary, it's mostly only bad because it makes getting paid by a hand like ace queen much more difficult. Remember, I already ruled out the majority of drawing hands once Christian checked the turn. Also, going back to the idea once again that in short-handed games, I'll be betting lighter and more often for value with the expectation of getting called lighter. We have a clear betting situation. I make it 1700 to go if Christian doesn't want to wait until the vlog comes out to see what I've got. A shove wouldn't be something that I'd like to see, but it requires some huge cojones from the opponent since I'm going to have a lot of flushes, straights, 2-pair and set combos after betting turn and river. My bluffs will mostly just be ace-jack offsuit hands that contain a diamond or a hand like 10-9 of clubs. After about 25 seconds, the opponent makes the call, we turn over our set, it's the best hand, we win a big pot to get us unstuck, but no amount of profit is safe in this game since the buy-in is uncapped and the stakes regularly get raised as players agree to it. This one feels great to win though, particularly against a talented opponent. Be sure to check Christian out the next time that he's doing stream commentary. We're dealt a7 suited in middle position. I raise to 100. The button calls. His name's Boston Jimmy. You may recognize that name from numerous live streams at the lodge. Jimmy's been in multiple vlogs of mine, and he organizes this game at the Win. He's done a ton to bring a lot of action to this property. We're heads up out of position. The flop comes ace jack 5, all diamonds. We've got top pair, but it's bittersweet since we don't have a diamond, so this board is likely only going to get worse for us. I check it over to my friend. We won't be getting a free lunch. The button bets 130. I don't hate the idea of even folding at this point. Against certain opponents I might. It just feels too weak to do that though. I call, rooting for some card. Not really sure what I need. It's possible the 10 of diamonds might be the best for me, so I can justify folding to another bet and get out with minimal loss. Instead, the turn is the 4 of hearts. It's a brick. I check. The button can keep the pressure on with a bet to make my day worse. Despite him being a good guy, he does make my day worse as he fires for 320. Boston Jimbo, you're killing me, dude. Our hand should actually be a pure fold at this point. We can definitely be drawing dead with our one pair. We have very little chance of improving, and even if we do, there's a high probability that we'll still be beat. I just can't get myself to lay it down. I make a bad call. The river is the queen of hearts. I'm in no man's land, wondering if that's a good card or bad card for me. I check one last time, expecting to face a large bet. Instead, Jimmy checks back. We turn over our top pair without a strong kicker. It's good enough to win it. Jimmy did well to keep putting the pressure on me and continue to put me in a tough spot, but I was too stubborn and sticky. Even though I had the best hand the whole time, I made a call that's actually a mistake. Yet I was rewarded for it. Sometimes that's just how poker works out. So we've got pocket kings under the gun +1 while the stand-up game is going. The loser has to pay everyone $100. By some miracle, I managed to win my seat already. Several players are still standing though. I raised to 140, which is more than I normally raise to, but I need to charge a premium since I know people will be calling me with wider ranges in attempts to try and earn their seats back. The button calls. This gentleman is either still trying to earn his seat back, or maybe he's building up his endurance to be a human billboard at a busy intersection if poker doesn't work out. The straddler also calls. He's a stander as well, not to be confused with a walker. We'd be in a lot more trouble if there were zombies at our table. We're going 3 ways to the flop. It comes queen 10-8 rainbow. We've got an overpair, but 2 opponents. It's a very connected board. The player on our right checks. I check it over to the button. He bets 220. The under the gun player must have a piece. He calls. I don't really like any of our options that much. Folding is completely ridiculous, but we could be crushed, and the board will pretty much only get worse. Calling allows both of our opponents an opportunity to see a free card and improve if we in fact do have the best hand currently. Finally, raising could cause me to lose a lot more money than necessary, plus it opens up the doors for one of the other 2 opponents to re-raise, forcing me to fold. I call to see what develops. There's a bit of a scary situation due to the fact that there are quite a few bad cards that could come out, and both opponents have a big incentive to play aggressively so that they won't have to pay $100 to each player at the table if they lose a stand-up game. The turn is the 4 of clubs, putting a flush draw on the board. The under the gun player checks. I'm not very concerned about him having us beat since he probably would have check raised the flop with 2 pair better. I check to the button. What he does now is going to give a big indication as to the strength of his hand. If he checks back, we almost for sure have the best hand because he won't be checking 2 pair better here. If he bets after 2 players have called him on the flop, we'll have to be much more worried that we're up against a strong made hand. Luckily, the button checks back. I'm very happy about that. Now I'm really rooting for a blank. The river is the 4 of hearts. It's a terrific card because in the off chance that one of the other opponents flop 2 pair, they just got counterfeited. Plus, they'll have a hard time folding a queen to a bet. Under the gun checks. I don't see how he could have our overpair beat. No one should really expect us to be as strong as we are. We have 2 candidates or people that we could potentially take to Value Town, plus a check through on the turn, opening it up for me to turn a lot of hands into bluffs. Under these conditions, I like to go with larger sizings than usual. I like big bets, and I cannot lie, I make it 1200. It's more than the pot. If people want to go to Value Town, they're going to have to pay a premium for it because the weather's just really nice this time of year, so the demand is high, plus I can't really take that many people, so the supply is low. The button has other vacation plans. He folds. The under the gun player is trying to piece our story together. Maybe he's contemplating putting in a raise as a bluff since I'll pretty much never have trip 4s, whereas he could. I doubt that he checked trips on the river after it checked through on the turn, so I'll be calling if that's what he decides to do. Ultimately, he folds. Would have been nice to get paid there, but it isn't the first or the 15th. We still at least win a nice sized pot. It's been pretty smooth sailing so far outside of the queen's hand earlier on. Here we've got ace-4 suited in the small blind. It folds to us. I raised to 160. The big blind just graduated from Rude School with a minor in making lives miserable. He 3-bets to 500. He's actually a pretty nice guy, and he's very good at poker. He's been 3-betting me all day though, and he knows that I'll have a wide range when I open from the small blind. The thing is that I know that he knows that I'll be opening light. We've got one of those quintessential 4-bet hands that we occasionally play like aces since we have removal for rockets, and the ace-4 suited has good post-flop playability with straight, flush, and top pair potential. I put in a big re-raise to 1700. A lot of today's profit is on the line here, dudes. We need to get this one through. If the opponent 5-bet jams, I'll be sick to my stomach. Guess what? Our 4-bet doesn't get through. Why would it? Well, we tried hard, we tried good. But it wasn't enough to get the job done. Don't lose hope yet though. The opponent just flats the 4-bet. There's about 3,500 in the pot, and our opponent has 6,100 left in his stack as we're out of position, going to the flop. Hit the like button on the count of 3 for extra run good because this is intense and we're gonna need it. Ready? 1, 2, 3. The flop comes ace-9-9 with 2 clubs and a spade. Not bad, but it isn't that great since not enough of you hit the like button. We at least have top pair and a backdoor flush draw. We're likely way ahead or way behind. The pot is massive and the opponent doesn't have a ton left relative to the size of the pot. Ace-high boards will be good for our 4-bet range. Small sizing here will accomplish quite a bit. I take out 5 black chips and I make a tiny bet of 500. It's actually about 15% of the pot. Even though the big blind is getting 8-1 on a call, he pretty much snap folds. It's a big relief to win that one. Apparently, we got enough likes after all. The small blind is cool enough to let me know later that he called the 4-bet with 5-4 diamonds. It sounds a little outrageous, but I tend to believe him, especially because I look it up and 5-4 suited is surprisingly supposed to 3-bet and call a 4-bet in that exact situation. Here's a look at the chart from the Smash Live Cash course on Upswing that I was a part of. I have a link to it in the description box below if you're interested in looking to improve your game. You see that 5-4 suited is included as a 4-bet call, and this chart is for when effective stack sizes are 100 times the amount in the straddle. When effective stack sizes are 200 times the amount in the straddle, like in the actual hand, the big blind can call with an even wider range. In this one, we've got 9-6 suited in the $40 straddle. The button raises to 120. We're going to be defending basically all of our suited hands. I call for 80 more. We're heads up out of position against another good player. The flop comes 8-6 deuce rainbow. We've got middle pair and some backdoor draws. I check to the button. This situation is actually one that I described earlier when it's a button versus the person who's closing the action pre-flop, whether that's the big blind or in this case me in the under the gun straddle, and the flop comes 8, 9, or 10 high. The button has a big range advantage and can overbet pot with impunity. Like I said, the button is a good player and he knows that he can bet pot or more than pot if he wants to. He goes with a bet of 440. It's over 1.5 times what's in the middle. It's a massive sizing. I know that he's capable of doing this with complete air or really anything that has a backdoor draw of some sort. Still, it puts me in a weird spot because our hand is too good to fold, but it's not all that fun to call with since we'll have to fold on a lot of turns if we face more pressure. Proper strategy would be calling the vast majority of the time while mixing in check raises about 10% of the time. Now, in order to determine whether we'll be calling or if this is one of the 10% times that we'll be check raising, I go through a very standard process amongst elite pros. I select 10 random numbers between 1 and 100 in my head, then I roll an imaginary ball onto a very large imaginary roulette wheel containing 100 numbers. Wow, would you look at that? The ball landed on 59, which happens to be one of the 10 random numbers that I selected in my head. Looks like we're going the aggressive route, boys.
Raise.
Whoops, fold. Nice hand.
Nice.
I have plans for future operation.
Thank God for the imaginary roulette spin. We got the snap fold after raising to 1100. After turning off the camera, the opponent tells me that he had Jack 10 and he was planning to bomb it if a queen or 9 came out. I told him a 9 would have made it fun. That's the last interesting hand of the session. Time to rack up a nice high stakes win.